PSTV is an excellent device. It does have flaws just as the Vita has flaws, but over time I've come to appreciate the PSTV and what it can do more and more. It also makes me more annoyed when I think about how Sony just wasted this excellent little device. The PlayStation TV, or the PlayStation Vita TV as it was originally titled, was announced in Japan in 2013. It's basically a non-handheld version of the Vita, but you can connect to your TV to play Vita games or PSP and PS1 games that are on the PlayStation Store. When it was announced, I was very excited about it. It was such a small and elegant system, smaller than a mobile phone in terms of width and length. The reception was very positive at the time, and many fans were clamoring for a global release. It was only planned for Japan at that time, but at E3 2014, Sony announced it would be coming to the West in November that year, and it would cost only $100. This was a great price point. For just $100, you were getting a game system that looked good under your TV and had a big library of digital games. The critic reviews were very positive, and it even won some design awards. Reviewers saw the potential of the PSTV as a set-top box and a gaming system. It was coming out before Amazon and Apple had tried to update their TV boxes to include gaming. Sony got there first. It was cheaper than the Apple TV, and they had the gaming brand to really make something like this work. But it didn't really work out well, and in the end Sony discontinued the PSTV in the West at the end of 2015, just a year after its release. There were a few problems with the PSTV and its messaging that really caused this failure. One of the big problems was that it couldn't play all Vita games. The Vita has a front touchscreen, back touchpad, tilt controls, and front and rear cameras. Some games, especially games released early on in the Vita's life, tried to incorporate these features in their games. Those devs wouldn't have been aware of the PSTV's existence at that point, and most of those games weren't compatible with the PSTV, because there was no front touch or back touch or cameras on the device. It was a problem that when the PSTV released, it wasn't clear which games worked and which ones wouldn't. Sony tried to provide a list of compatible games, but they had mistakes on their own list, leaving it up to fans to figure out. Strangely, some PSP games didn't work with the PSTV that were compatible with the Vita. These games didn't use the Vita's extra controls at all, but somehow they still didn't work on the PSTV. The lack of clear direction on game compatibility hurt the device from the offset. Even today, some Vita games aren't compatible, including games that don't use a touchscreen at all. The PSTV used the same memory cards as the Vita, which is to be expected since it is basically a Vita that connects to your TV, but this was off-putting to some due to the high price of the memory cards. It had 1 GB of memory, but Sony knew the main complaint about the Vita was the memory card pricing. They could have at least included 4 gigs or 8 gigs in the system as standard, so that people weren't forced to buy one of their memory cards. Where Sony really failed to take advantage of the PSTV was to fulfill its potential to be a set-top box. Having Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, YouTube, HBO Go, and all the other popular TV and movie streaming apps would have positioned the PSTV perfectly as a set-top box for your home that also plays games. It needed these apps, and Sony should have been pushing to get them on the PSTV. Netflix was available on the North American PSN, but not in Europe for some reason. Sony should have worked with the third parties to solve any roadblocks for these TV apps before the PSTV was launched. Even if they had all the popular video streaming apps, it wouldn't have helped without advertising, and this again is another way they failed the PSTV. They advertised it a bit in Japan, but outside of their blogs and some gaming sites, they didn't advertise it at all in the West. I have friends who are lapsed gamers. They bought a SNES Classic because they missed those retro games. Sony could have marketed the PSTV as the place to play those retro PS1 games, like Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy VII and Wipeout. It was cheap enough that it could have been an impulse buy for former gamers in their 30s and 40s that wanted to go back and replay these games on their TV with this tiny, sleek device. I know advertising costs money, but it's just frustrating that they didn't even try and make it a success. They released it with no advertising and unclear messaging. Of course it was going to fail. As a YouTuber, I use my PSTV a lot to capture game footage. I've installed a whitelist hack which lets me play all Vita games on it, and it's a great little system for recording game footage. Being able to play Vita games on the go and use PS Plus Cloud Save to continue on my PSTV has been awesome. Like with the Switch, having the option to play these games on a handheld or on a TV is great, but ultimately it feels like such a waste. Sony is so good at making these amazing systems, like the PSTV, like the Vita, like the PSP Go, but they don't even try to make them a success. This is one of the reasons I didn't jump onto the PSVR. I wanted to see how much effort they put into making games for it, and so far I'm glad I didn't get on board. But I definitely don't regret buying a PSTV. So guys, have you got a PSTV, and what did you think about it? What do you think Sony should have done to make it successful? Leave a comment below, and as always, thanks for watching.